States. Secretary Hegseth has now removed the top legal advisors for military services and recommended replacements at a lower rank. So, Lieutenant General Kaine, if confirmed, your job will be to present your best military advice. Do you agree that in order to be able to comply with the law and make sure that your advice complies with the law, that military commanders need legal advisors with both enough expertise and a high enough rank that they will be listened to during this process?
I do, Senator. I know I've always had great legal advice, regardless of what rank they were, but I do agree.
So you think that you need people who have good advice, but do you think it helps in making sure that others, I'm glad that you listen to good advice no matter where it comes from, but that others are more willing to listen if the people offering legal advice have high enough rank to carry some weight in the room when those decisions are taking place?
I do, Senator, although as I mentioned, I've sincerely had great legal advice from 05s to 07s, and I think it's the human, the officer, and their professionalism and intellect versus what rank they have. I do appreciate the efforts to ask the question about what rank they should be, but would defer to the Secretary on what rank he would want them to be.
I have to say that gives me some real concern, because the whole point of elevating the rank was the concern that not enough people were listening to good legal advice. And while I appreciate that you say you listen, we need people to listen who are making decisions up and down the line. I understand, Lieutenant General Kaine, that the circumstances of your nomination are beyond your control, but they also place a significant burden on you to show leadership, to restore public confidence in the military, and to show that you work for the American people. I've long been concerned by senior Pentagon leaders who trade on their time in public service to cash out afterwards to work for defense contractors. And that is why during his confirmation hearing, General Brown agreed that he would not become a lobbyist or join the board of a defense contractor after he resigned. Lieutenant General Kaine, are you willing to demonstrate that you're taking this job to serve the American people and commit that after you leave this job, you will not work for any major defense contractors or companies that are affected by your official actions?
Senator, for myself, I've got no intent to do so.
Okay, so you can commit to that.
Yes, sir. It's not my intent.
President Trump's removal of highly qualified and talented military leaders is a permanent stain on this nation's history, as well as a blow to our ability to recruit the force that we need to compete with China. If confirmed, you will have an important responsibility to show the American people that you will defend our nation with integrity, that you will follow the law, and that you will lead our men and women in uniform with integrity. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator. We'll now move to Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see you again, General. Congratulations. I think you've, well, let me first start by saying, I think the people who talk the most about making sure you give advice to President Trump have no experience with President Trump, and interpersonally, I should say. And he does seek out advice among a lot of people, and I think that your background and your experience will be invaluable to him as he asks tough questions and you give honest advice as you've committed here today. And so anyway, I think the dynamic's going to be great. I think your background and experience really prepare you very well for this important role. So I wanted to ask you about a couple of things where I think that your experience will play an important role in specific decisions. So this great powers competition that we are, with China. I was really happy to see President Trump and Secretary Hegseth move quickly on NGAD and not just deciding that we were going to move forward with next generation air dominance, but actually selecting the F-47 so we can move forward on this. I think that was a bold stroke of leadership and decisiveness that we need right now. That aircraft will see further, go faster, carry bigger payloads, which matter a lot in the Indo-Pacific. And with your experience, I know that you can appreciate that. But one of the big challenges we have, has been mentioned by a few already, is just the inability for us to go from point A to point B. When we recognize a problem, how do we solve the problem? We're just, everyone recognizes it's an issue. And I guess, but we haven't made a whole lot of progress up until this point. I believe there is a commitment to do something about it. You and I talked about this at our office. In your view, what would we do differently if we were at war right now? Like if we actually, live rounds, right? We're at war. What would we do differently than we're doing right now on the procurement side and the execution side?
Well, Senator, thanks for the question. You know, the chairman's bill builds on a book that was written about the defense industrial base back in the mid-30s. And I think if we were in a gunfight at this point in time, we'd be doing a lot more with a greater sense of urgency than we probably have right now. And if I'm confirmed, I'll carry that sense of urgency that I think we share into the department and into the joint force to make sure that we do not end up in a case where our young warfighters do not have the kit that they need prior to them needing it.
Yeah, that overwhelming force that we need to have, that advantage that we have is just critical. And the concern that I have is that we talk a lot about it, but we have to move forward on this. We have to move forward. So again, before I run out of time, again, your experience, varied experience in the military and now outside, I think give you a glimpse of one of the challenges that we face too. So Missouri, this is sort of a Missouri asset here, is the home to Whiteman Air Force Base, which is more broadly known as the home of the B-2 stealth bomber and soon to be the B-21. But the 442nd Fighter Wing is also there. And the 442nd Fighter Wing, like many of these units, punch above its weight class, has flown the A-10 in combat missions for decades. The A-10 is going away. And I think there's a frustration that there hasn't been a follow-on mission named here. And we talked about this in my office, and there's opportunities, whether it's in the short term, you know, the F-15E and eventually the F-15EX. The real danger is that because we've delayed these decisions, these experienced maintainers and pilots, they go somewhere else, right? They just don't have the certainty of knowing that there's going to be a follow-on mission. Will you work with my office and the folks that are responsible for these decisions? We just have to start making these decisions more decisively and timely. And I think that Whiteman stands right in the front of that line.
Sure, I will, but I want to make sure I bring the Air Force leadership into that conversation as well. I've got very little throw weight on those decisions.
No, I know, but you're going to be in an important spot, and I think
sir.
recognizing strategically that this is important, and we've had conversations with the Air Force about this as well. I guess with the last remaining seconds I have, I'll just sort of your view. Of this great powers competition with China, what are some things that we need to get better at? What are some things that we need to do to prepare for the end as we shift and pivot to Asia, as so many people have talked about in the Indo-Pacific?
Sir, that's with deep respect for the question. That's a pretty big question.
What's the most important thing? The one thing.
Probably taking advantage of the time that we have, as I mentioned earlier in my testimony, making sure that we're moving with the speed, precision, sense of urgency to get the kit that we need. The challenges range from contested logistics to long-range fires to command and control, so it's a much deeper conversation, Senator.
Well, thank you. Look forward to working with you.